And actually, on that note, I had asked Don to give us a couple of words, just generically talking about his view of DeKalb and what's going on as he sees it. So you want to give us a few words, maybe? And this is kind of dovetails into all the work you did on the board.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, Don was the board member from District 2 for several years, and for 4 years, and a good friend of mine.
Thank you, Nancy. Nancy and Dr. Speaks and I formed a pretty good trio of opposition, I guess, on a lot of issues that came before the board. And everything I heard Mr. Lewis say and also Nancy said about what happens to the board is very accurate. We often got information late at the last second, but we would read it. We have a lot of people that never read it, no matter when they got it. And that did show up the other night. I think if they had it, they wouldn't have, some of those folks would not have read it, and I think that's an important thing. This is an important job, and I read every single word on those charters, and some of them were not much fun to read. And I read one contract one time that it said that this had to be approved by the European Federal Credit Union, and I brought that up in the meeting. I said, why are the Europeans approving that? And they struck that out finally because no one had read it. And Alice Thompson started saying to me, he says, well, they're going to read this now because they know you're reading this, Don. And I said, well, I thought that's what I was supposed to do. But this is very true. There's a lot of dysfunction going on amongst the board and misinformation about charter schools. The cityhood movement and charter schools and DeKalb performance, a lot of this is intertwined. The first question always asked in any of the cityhood meetings was, well, what does this mean about the schools? Because everybody thought they could start their own separate school system. Well, it would take an amendment to the Georgia Constitution to do that. So Tom Taylor's bill on the independent school districts is, I think, a great opportunity to get some autonomy here, and it's a way to make it really work. Now, I think they're fighting an uphill battle on this for quite some time, but I hope it has a chance. If it doesn't in this session, maybe it will begin to take traction in a year or two down the road. It will happen, and that will be good for all of us. Now, as far as commenting on the Druid Hills situation, I was a representative from that district. I found some real remarkable inconsistencies amongst what happened on the state legislative level as well as the local level. You have the current District 2 board member who was against the state charter amendment but is for the Druid Hills charter. Of course, the fact that he lives in Druid Hills probably has something to do with it. In connection with the city movement, you have Mary Margaret Oliver, who introduced a bill to not create any more cities, and then on the last day of the session, she introduced a bill to create the city of Brookhaven. Briarcliff, excuse me. And I'm so this all confuses me. This kind of stuff confuses me, and I have a hard time dealing with it. And now dealing with this most important issue, the Druid Hills Charter Cluster. I'm a traditionalist. Nancy and I know that. Nancy and I argue about things all the time. But the nice thing about it is we listen to each other, and I think she's changed my mind on some things, and I think I've changed her mind on some things. And we have just a very healthy relationship and discussion about these kinds of things. And I'm a traditionalist. Okay, I went through the public schools. I taught in DeKalb County. I believe in the public schools. Okay, so it's real hard for me to check out on some of that. And of course, a charter school is still a public school. A lot of people don't understand that. But it's a different concept. So I think what you finally have to look at is, do the kids benefit? Do the kids benefit? And in the Druid Hills Charter Cluster, the kids will benefit by far over what the county is doing right now. There's no doubt about it. But to echo what Representative Taylor said, and I don't know whether any of you ever read my blog, donfordekab.com, but I pontificated on this several weeks ago. I do not see the board okaying this charter because it's effectively legislating them out of business, because then the avalanche will come from the other charter systems. And I do not see them doing something like that. Now, you know, it takes a pretty mature person to stop and say, what is the reason for my job? Is it to perpetuate my job or to do what I'm supposed to do for the kids? I always remember the Georgia School Board Association saying things like that, like you need to cast your vote based upon what's best for the kids, not about getting elected next time. And as many of you know, and I know Nancy and Pam know, when we were on the board, there were a lot of days I didn't want to go out there and hold my hand up because there was a no-win. However you voted, you were going to be some kind of cad, you know, you were just going to make the wrong decision. This charter school thing is important. I hate to say it, but I think it's going down 6-3 or 5-4 because Michael Thurman is not for this movement. Now, somebody's got to do some work there. And also we need a professional superintendent. We need a professional superintendent, not a politician. Do you know how many people he has hired that may have been potential thorns in his side that are now on the payroll?
Is that right?
Yeah, and you go, and some of these people I've heard in public meetings being critical of him, and now they're on the payroll, and now they love it. I wonder how that happened. So this is a lot of what goes on in DeKalb County, and I talked about it before with Mr. Lantier over here about the incompetence that exists in the DeKalb County staff and school system. It really does. And that's not to put down the many, many good people we have working for us, because I saw many of those people as I worked in DeKalb County. We have some really wonderful people in the central office as well as in the schools. But we have major hurdles to overcome, and to return it to the things that Mr. Lewis was talking about, as I remember as DeKalb County students back in the 50s and 60s. I'm an old guy, but I was there when it was great. Taught in it when it was great. And I just see that we need to make some changes here. And I think that you folks need to be aware of what your elected officials do. Now, I just pointed out 2 inconsistencies amongst people who are making decisions about school with Representative Oliver, the current District 2 member, and how he votes on things. And there are others that do this too. Most folks I talk to are not necessarily aware of that. And it is important to know what is their motivation. And I say their motivation needs to be for the children and not for the perpetuation of their job. And this is very important. If the charter cluster system makes it, and I hope it does, because it is better for the kids, this is going to be a definite for the school board. And that's how the south part of DeKalb County views that. The members from the south part of DeKalb view it. They really don't understand the advantages that they can gain from this too. So I think we need to do a lot of talking to folks. I think you need to talk to your board members. Of course, the board members you're going to talk to there's 3 solid yes votes because they have to. One of them would be run out of town on a rail if they didn't vote that way. There are 3 solid votes that way. But the other 2 that you have to find, they're going to be a little more difficult. And a lot of emails makes a difference. Of course, when we were on the board, sometimes we get flooded with thousands of them about redistricting and all. You couldn't read them all. But I tried to read as many as I could. I got the gist. I knew what they were pretty much about. You need to comment. And
also to the administration.
Correct. Mr. Thurman doesn't seem, as Stan said, doesn't seem to want to listen to anybody. I've been several meetings. I was at a DCPC meeting where he would just say things that were factually incorrect. Like we didn't have an ethics policy.
No.
It was in the ethics policy, and he said, I said, no, we just didn't use the word nepotism, but we said aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters. I said, we had it all there, and he stood out in all these meetings and said it didn't happen. And folks, it was already there. So I think it's great to see you here, that you're involved in DeKalb County and what needs to go on. You need to stay involved because the children here really matter, and you need to make sure that there's an equality of the way education is distributed. And I appreciate the fact that you're here because it's just a good thing for DeKalb. And Nancy, thank you for having me.
Thank you